At Origyn Foundation, we believe creativity is humankind's greatest asset. So we're developing the tools and technologies to preserve the creations that define human ingenuity. Artworks, luxury goods, digital media, collectibles, and so much more. We use advanced AI and decentralized computing to identify, authenticate, and prove ownership of objects of value, unlocking new possibilities for industries, artists, and consumers. We return control to the true creatives. We enable supporters to produce projects for their favorite artists. And we guarantee authenticity, ultimately making it as easy as snapping a picture with your smartphone. Because when we create new revenue streams, we can reward true value creators. We can put an end to counterfeiting, and we can provide unprecedented access to the world's most important creations. Origyn Foundation, powering new possibilities.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another Cointelegraph AMA. I'm Giovanni, your host, and today I have the pleasure to be joined by Daniel Haudenschild, the CEO of Origyn. How are you doing, Daniel?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
It's a pleasure for us. So before we start, I wanted to just quickly introduce Origyn. So Origyn is a decentralized platform that provides certificates of authenticity via non-fungible tokens. Its mission is becoming the global standard in tracking artwork provenance and certifying authenticity. So now we're going to get into this topic, and we're going to ask Daniel our questions. But before we start, I want to remind our audience that this is an interactive show. So for everyone watching, please don't hesitate to write your questions down in the chat, and we're going to ask Daniel to reply to your questions. So let's get into it. So Daniel, would you mind to tell us a bit more about Origyn? So what is the project about?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks. So, well, you mentioned it a bit in the beginning. Origyn is a Swiss foundation. The Swiss foundation is an important part because the Swiss foundation doesn't have an equity structure. So it means we can't be bought out. And that changes the way that people work with Origyn, and it changes the motivation of some of the amazing team that we have on board, because they're working really for a higher purpose than just to make the shareholders wealthy. But we do that as well. What Origyn does is it uses the NFT format to take ultra high resolution pictures and to pack those into NFTs. Make them available for Dfinity's Internet Computer Protocol, the ICP, and then we use computer vision and microstructure traceability to be able to recognize those objects later on. Not just it's a watch or it's a handbag, but down to the serial number and down to the unique item. So, in sets of objects that look the same, for a computer, they look different. So a computer can pick out one single orange in a bushel of oranges based on its skin, something a human could never do. And we use some of those same techniques to identify luxury goods. So what does that bring us? Well, what it brings you as a consumer is it brings you a guarantee that if Origyn says it's authentic and it turns out not to be, there's somebody there who's ready to stand in and pay for the damages. So that degree of authenticity is really what we do. It's kind of boring. So we make certificates. But how we make them and the technology we use is anything but boring. It's actually extremely exciting, and we're really kind of pushing the envelope in some of what can be done, both with iPhone and on-device recognition, as well as using artificial intelligence in decentralized systems. So that's really super exciting. But at the heart of it, it's really protecting the consumer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds quite interesting. So as far as I understand, the certificates that you provide can be applied to both digital and physical goods. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely, and sometimes both. If you have to imagine that the metaverse is this sort of Ryanair flight where everybody has a ticket for the plane, and the people who get to the plane first get to choose their seats. What NFTs allow you to do in that digital world is to have scarcity and to apply scarcity concepts, not just in one metaverse, but potentially in interoperable metaverses. So the skin, how do you know that your boxing gloves that you have are truly legendary? How do you know that there is only 700 of the skin that you're wearing? How do you know that scarcity is enforceable? Not just in your metaverse, but maybe to be able to go from one metaverse to the other one and have that ability. So the digital only aspect and the digital media aspect of what Origyn does is provide scarcity in digital worlds. And an example of that, also with the cross-chain one, we're working with a game company called Cryptopolis, and it's a social climbing game where people like Sims live in a Tower of Babel. And as you go higher in the tower, your status increases and you unlock rewards. And one of the rewards is a digital Rolex that you wear. When you unlock that reward, you get a physical certificate. You get a certificate which actually unlocks a real Rolex that you can redeem at Origyn. So this bringing physical assets into the digital metaverse is the ultimate representation of scarcity, because it has to be linked to a real world object. And that's some of the exciting stuff that you can unlock with sort of this next generation of NFT technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool. So maybe now we can get a bit deeper into the actual process. So if I have like an object, like a piece of art or a watch, how does this process of getting the certificate of authenticity with Origyn actually work step by step? If you can maybe describe the process.
Sure. So what Origyn has is a series of what we call verticals, and there's four. There's luxury goods, there's art, digital media, and collectibles. Each one of these is a separate legal entity because it carries its own liability. And each of these legal entities, therefore, are 100% owned by Origyn Enterprise, which in turn is 100% owned by Origyn Foundation. Each one of these verticals has its own ecosystem of 50 nodes. And much like a node in any blockchain environment, the nodes are there to authenticate the transactions on the system. So the nodes are really ecosystem players that issue and have the ability to issue the authentication of certain items. So we work with companies like Watchbox, who is a known leader in the certified pre-owned business, as well as with Topwatch, Ace Jewelers, and others that are taking watches and creating digital certificates that are called certified pre-owned. And then we issue the certificate on the blockchain for companies like Watchbox to give them that guarantee and to give that guarantee on to the consumer. So chances are at the moment, because of sort of that the first stage of this is that a B2B platform where our partners within the ecosystem can provide better certificates to their consumers. That's probably the first place that you will experience it. In art specifically, and we have fractionalized. We're working with, as parts of the ecosystem, some of the best galleries and museums and contemporary artists in the world. And they have they offer up authenticated pieces of art. At the moment, we have a Keith Haring, which is a fantastic piece. It's the size of a wall. It's really one of his best pieces. It's never been outside of the Haring Foundation, and its provenance is straight from the Keith Haring Foundation. And what you can do with art, because the value is so high, is you can turn it into many small NFTs, and then you can take part. You don't have to spend the $8 million it costs to buy the whole painting, but you can invest in art as an investment and as an asset class without without having to buy the whole thing. So you can still participate as a sponsor and as an art enthusiast, and that's something that's available now, and you can participate in some of those sales, and that's really exciting, I think, for a lot of people. In the collectible space as well, we've got some amazing, truly legendary sports heroes, that we all know, that are going to be doing NFT drops on Impossible Things, which is our marketplace. And this Impossible Things marketplace is pass driven. So if you get a pass, you get the first access to the drops. But we have some fantastic news coming out in that space, and it's really exciting. Now we can finally start to talk about stuff we've been working on for years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're gonna touch upon some of the latest news regarding the developments going on with Origyn in a bit. I just want to remind our audience to ask some questions if they are wondering what Origyn is up to, what process, what is the process of creating this certificate of authenticities via non-fungible tokens. So if you're curious about NFT technology in general, please leave your question in the chat, and we're going to ask our guest about it. So before we get into the questions of the audience, I have another question for you. Daniel, so what is the actual competitive advantage of Origyn's authentication technology compared to the other similar solutions that we see in the market right now?
Yeah, I think that's well, we're a Swiss foundation. I mentioned that before, but it's important. It means that Elon Musk can't come in and buy Origyn. Walmart can't come in and put 500 million on the table and say we want to be a luxury brand. And this is really because the token governance mechanism of the foundation and the way that the Swiss foundation is set up means that it has to listen to the token, to the token holders, and those token holders are those ecosystem participants. So the luxury brands that we work with would never sort of allow a Walmart to buy its way into the luxury goods space. A place that they've coveted for years, and that's supremely important to how this works. I think that's a little bit the governance of how the ecosystem comes together. I think the other competitive advantage is, we have an amazing team. We have. From our founders down, Mike Schwartz is, ex-Boston Consulting, head of digital ventures, was involved in the Tracer project that first started tracking De Beers diamonds when he was at Digital Ventures, is really kind of, our spirit animal and mentor in the technology space. And he's got a superpower in that he can amass just this fantastic talent that wants to work with him on his projects. We've also got Vincent Perriard, who's spent most of his life in luxury goods, 20 years in Audemars Piguet and running his own luxury brands. He's a real insider in the industry, and in this industry you need that to get there. And finally, we have Gian Boschler, who is one of the co-founders of Dfinity, and there's only two. It's Gian and Dominic Williams. And that explains a little bit some of our really tight ties to the Dfinity community and Dfinity. But it's not just with those founders. It's really kind of the team that we've been managed to put around those people to go after what I think one of the best understood and sort of really the most obvious use cases for all of blockchain is provenance. Where did something come from? Is the person who's trying to sell it to me the rightful owner? And is it real and authentic? Those are the questions that we can answer, and we can do that in a way that's never been done. And that's really the final advantage. Or one of the main advantages is that we use microstructure traceability. We don't have to put a barcode on an object. We don't have to imprint the radio frequency ID. We can use the biometrics of the object itself in order to guarantee its authenticity. And we have a captive insurance vehicle that allows us to issue insurance against that. So that's really special. That's absolutely unique in the world. And it puts us in the lead. That puts us up front.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So talking about the system of governance that Origyn is based on. So as far as I understand, you have a very kind of interesting way to base the governance of your system on. So apparently it's a decentralized system. Can you maybe get deeper into the way the governance works?
Yeah, so at the moment, the governance is relatively simple because one vote equals one token, and you can vote on things that are important. And at the moment, the most important thing is the exchange rate between our token and this the XTC cycles that produce the Dfinity cycles on the ICP. So that's relatively simple. We vote on that exchange rate 3 times an hour or something similar, or 10 times an hour. So but in the future, what we want to have is, we don't want to have a centralized space. We want to have a decentralized for what the Origyn Foundation is to do, because we think that's the best way to really kind of deliver the value and deliver the mission of what Origyn does. So in the future, the everything that the platform does and how it works and how it expands will be governed through the governance mechanisms, right? So as the as the industry verticals mature, like luxury goods or art, and as the nodes take up more voting power with their staked rewards, they will get more and more powerful in determining how things are done in art or in luxury or in collectibles. And in those spaces, then you will have things like UEFA and the Football Association of England, and you will have the people that are governance by the governed, so to say, in order to produce the authenticity certificates and to have more people trust Origyn authenticity around the world. So that's really the crux of it. And actually, the foundation should begin to almost take a secondary role in this, because what the foundation does is, if we're good at what we do and we bring a lot of certificates into the world, then we'll make money at doing that, because the certificates have a cost, and this cost is then translated into proceeds from operations, which all go up to the foundation. Foundation's not for profit, so what it does with proceeds is it buys back tokens and destroys them. So we have a deflationary ultimate token cycle. And the more successful we are at getting people to use Origyn, to identify and authenticate things, and the more people use that tool, the more successful we are, and the less tokens there are in circulation. So that's kind of the crux behind the model.
That's a very interesting tokenomics. I'm going to ask you a bit more questions about your native token in a bit. But first, I want to address some of the questions from the audience. So someone is asking, could OGY extend to digital IDs and certificates? And what's your thoughts on soul-bound NFTs?
Yeah, I mean, so digital certificates, so digital identity and digital identity is really kind of probably the best space of provenance, right? That's human provenance. Now, that's also an extremely political. It's an extremely political space to be in, right? And I think that so it's certainly something that with any provenance use case we have our eyes on, and we have some ideas around how to make it better. We're going to be testing and starting to test some internal sort of zero knowledge proof based identity protocols within the Origyn ecosystem first. But there's a massive market out there for whoever gets that golden ring of identity NFTs. But certainly we have a very strong use case just internally, to know if the owner of this NFT is Bob, and if Bob is older than 18, for example. So being able to release zero knowledge proofs of, from an NFT will make the whole gated NFT community a stronger place. And that kind of leading into the soul-bound NFTs, we love them. I mean, think of, it's not just gamification. It's this, imagine that you're going to your club, and it's the club, it's your football club, it's Newcastle, or it's Arsenal, it's the Gunners, and you have your regular ticket with a QR code. You get into the stadium, but you have a proof of attendance token because you're actually at something, and that proves you're a fan, and that boosts your loyalty. Now you also are working with a bunch of NFTs from the players that you've assembled into your virtual soccer team, which is gamified, and also blockchain based. So you'll get rewards on some of the things that your players do, and your players will get a boost because you're actually at the stadium, in one of these kind of soul-bound NFT concepts where attendance matters. And by doing so, and by collecting across the spectrum of players' rights and club rights and association rights, you can unlock experiences such as traveling in a private jet to the quarterfinals with the team, in the team's jet. So that that kind of mixed concept of virtual world and metaverse experience, as well as in-stadium experience with VIP and exclusive and gated communities that are in real life, that's definitely the future, right? It's all about the experience that you have in the real world and in the metaverse based on the NFTs that you have. And the way to get there is to track and modify the behaviors of the real enthusiasts and the real fans. So that's where the soul-bound stuff, in all its permutation, be it loyalty tokens, membership hierarchies, or proof of attendance coins in some form, come in very handy.
Mm-hmm. And so let's just clarify at what stage. At what stage Origyn is at the moment. So, for example, these soundbound NFTs we were discussing, is it something that belongs already to your ecosystem, or it's something that you are working on and looking forward to provide in the future?
Well, so Origyn is a certification tool. Our certificates allow you to do, to guarantee that an object is real. So we are already working with cross-chain with other protocols. For example, there's a game called Cryptopolis. It's like it's a Sims game, and you unlock a Rolex when you get to a certain level that you can wear in game, and that shares a secret with Origyn that is redeemable for a real Rolex. So this is an example of a metaverse type game built on a Binance coin that you unlock, an in-game achievement for a real life object. And that's and walk away with a Rolex, on your wrist. So and that's real life. They're coming up in their alpha in July. So I think they're doing some fantastic things. It's live now. You can go to cryptopolis.com and you can explore the game right now. So we're doing that. Again, we do that in our regular world with tens of thousands of watches. We provide certificates that provide the insurance and watch papers for those certificates as well. So for us to link this with a shared secret in a cross chain like Polygon or BNB is not a massive step ahead, right? It's kind of what we do.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds very interesting. So I just want to remind our audience again to please write your questions, because I find this project very fascinating. And also, if you haven't done it already, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Now, I would like to touch upon the technology that you are using as a sort of a base. So, as far as I could understand from your website, you are using a public blockchain called the Internet Computer. So, how is this blockchain different from other public blockchains?
Yeah, so our layer one protocol is the Dfinity ICP, Internet Computer Protocol, also known as Dfinity. It is a next generation of decentralized technology. It's really our smart contracts can handle gigabytes of code. They can natively store and hold and manage Bitcoin addresses and soon Ethereum addresses. When you look at some of the other blockchains that are on the sort of building blocks that you can work with, you often find yourself like asking the questions, well, here's what we'd like to do. Now let's figure out how we can work around all of the technical constraints that we have, right? So in a way, it's like trying to get Netflix, from a fax machine. It's like, well, here's a fax machine. It's quite good. You can send information back and forth, even pictures. Now how do we get Netflix there? Well, we can send a whole bunch of pictures and we can stack them and like flip through them quickly and it would look like Netflix. But you find yourself kind of more thinking around how to get around the technical constraints, and you do thinking about what to do with the new protocol. Now, once you sort of move into one of these next generation blockchains like Dfinity, then you realize that all of those restrictions are gone. And so we see programmers coming over and saying, well, we had to do quite a simple, swap at Uniswap, because of how things work, which opened the door to rug pulls and other things. So the market maker function was actually quite easy. Now that we're in Dfinity, we, on the ICP, we can do a much more complicated, kind of, swap engine, which avoids rug pulls and do other things. So you see people kind of bring over and port over the concepts they knew from the other blockchains, and then they start to expand it once they realize that they don't have all of those technical constraints, and it really opens the door to new things. So we, as sharing a co-founder with Dfinity, we've been in lockstep with them, for years. We were first on the beta net. We were we were testing code before they were even live, and that's given us kind of an advantage in using some of these new technologies. And this layer 2 protocol, I mean, we can stream 4K video directly from on-chain resources. So, that you just have to think about that. We don't need an Amazon cloud services in the background with a small link to it. We can stream 4K video. So the richness and what you actually end up owning, as a ICP NFT is much deeper and has much more deeper content. And we use it as well, to power some of the artificial intelligence, some of the machine learning, of having this massive multilateral interaction, with image data around the world. So that's really kind of, we need that extra muscle and extra firepower to do some of the things that we're doing.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a very powerful technology. So yeah, looking forward actually to some deployments. So talking about in general, this is a question from my side regarding the situation in the NFT market. So what is your current outlook on the general situation in the NFT market at the moment?
In NFT or in crypto in general, right? Because crypto took a punch to the stomach a couple of weeks ago, and it's really kind of hasn't recovered yet, right? I think the NFT market, yep.
Yeah, no, I was meaning more like specifically NFTs, because of course we know that in general crypto is not in the best shape, but maybe NFTs have some more specific behavior at the moment.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, even in crypto, the fundamentals have never been better. We're definitely closer to the bottom than we were to the top. And so, these purges are sometimes, there's sometimes a bit of trauma associated with them, but they're also quite useful. Because it gets rid of some of the fluff that's involved. And so in general, we don't really want to sort of open our token up to speculation. The token is a necessary part of the ecosystem, but we want people to focus on what we do, at Origyn. So, which is the authentication and certification. Ideally, tokens would just be a mechanism through which we work. But in general, NFTs, we're just at the very, very start of this. If you can imagine some of the things that we will be able to do, with gated communities in the NFT space coming up, it's quite exciting. And so you see this with the Bored Apes, right? That's the first, right? There's a narrative that's developing with the Bored Apes. The Bored Apes got mutant juice, and then the Bored Apes turned into mutant Bored Apes, and all of a sudden you basically had a stock split, without anybody noticing or caring, because you could still keep your Bored Ape, but now you had 2 mutant apes, and you could sell those, and they started developing a price market on their own. And this story that's evolving with the apes, that's there to unlock these future experiences. This is really where the NFT market is going, and I think that this is just the surface. So, again, looking at sports events or concerts or experiences that we like going to. You look at some of the in-game experience that happened with Fortnite, and then you kind of combine those to real life events that happen at stadiums, you realize that these two worlds are going to come closer together, and NFTs are the way that you're going to get there. And collecting NFTs and the collectibles behind it, and collecting sets that allow you to unlock experiences, that's really cool, because then you say, okay, you need to spell the word Coca-Cola, right? And you need to collect all the NFTs that let you do that, but there's only a limited number of A's, and so not everybody can spell Coca-Cola, but the people who do unlock this massive experience. Now you've done two things there. You've created scarcity, and you force people to trade, because when they get a drop, they'll get some letters. They'll already have those letters. They'll be pushed back to the market, where then they can use it. They can sort of trade the letters that they have for the letters that they don't have. And on Impossible Things and all of our marketplaces, the NFT originators are the ones that sort of forever earn on all of those trades, which creates a wonderful incentive, to do things. So I think we're just scratching the surface around what NFT experiences are really going to be like, and how it's going to change fandom, for music and films and creativity all around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now going back to actually Origyn, let's maybe for the people who just joined the live stream, I can see a question that was left behind, but maybe can you just quickly explain again how creators can tokenize ownership with Origyn?
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with a lot of creators. We call them originators. They contact us through either the digital media or the other nodes, and then they have the ability to share their work with us. We work with film stars, with editors, with movie producers, with musicians, with photographers, with other creative designers. And what they do is they come to us, and we discuss the concept of the NFT and how they want to certify. And as a rule, almost all of them really just want to make their art or make their creative stuff available to their fan base in a direct way. Many of them suffer from not having people that are better at, let's say, the internet and computers, buy up all their stock and then flip it, for 3, 4, 10 times the value, where they're no longer included in any of that. And that's like fundamentally against some of the principles for what we do on Origyn, which is to protect the creative revenue streams for the originator. So again, with this forever earning concept, that NFTs, regardless of when they're traded, they will always have some of that trade will go back to the originator, and also with the ability to kind of disseminate people's creations directly to the fan base, without having sort of middlemen come in, buy up stock, and then sell them. These kind of go exactly to the core principles of what Origyn tries to do. So anybody who's an originator and have the creative talent, we welcome them to get in touch with us, and we'll either put them in touch with a node in the ecosystem that is doing similar things, where they can start to tokenize and start to certify their objects, or we'll get into another discussion of how they can become a node themselves.
Mm-hmm. And now, talking about the token that powers your system, so your native token OGY, what is the function of the token in the ecosystem?
Yeah, so it's a utility token, and the utility that you buy is actually, you pay the internet computer to remember the fact that you have a certificate, right? So that's quite important, because if the internet computer doesn't have any more cycles to process and keep the storage power and to process the content of the certificate, it'll get overwritten, and some other content will be there. So paying for the certificate life cycle, and for a luxury watch that might be 100 years, right? Or for a football game, it might just be for 3 hours. But either way, what you get with the Origyn certificate, the primary object that the utility does is it buys the certificate's lifespan, and that's usually paid for by the partners or by the ecosystem. So when you buy the watch, you'll get the certificate. it'll have a lifespan. You can renew it yourself after the lifespan, runs out in 100 years or whatever. The second thing that the Origyn token does is also provide the utility for voting and participation in the governance mechanism. And for that participation, you are rewarded. So if you vote and if you participate in governance, you are rewarded with more tokens. So there's a staking concept, and staking gives you voting power, and voting power is rewarded with multipliers. The longer you stake, the more you earn.
Mm-hmm. And as far as I know, this month Origyn is going to list the native token on 2 centralized exchanges, Max Global and BitTrue. So can you explain what is the significance of this milestone for your ecosystem?
Yeah, so we're actually already tradable on Sonic DEX. That's sonic.000. It's one of the first decentralized exchanges that's out there in the ICP world. We're one of the first token pairs that's up there. It's our part as one of the biggest projects in the Dfinity ecosystem, also to support some of the other spaces. I can tell you that the best price right now for Origyn tokens is definitely on the DEX. We will be listing on MEXC Global, so MEX Exchange Global, and BitTrue. We've chosen these exchanges out of strategic reasons because we like the geographic spread, we like the user base, and again, we don't want to start on at the top tier exchanges, and change some of the sort of the principles of that Origyn stands for, and then also have us open to a lot of speculation, right? We need the exchange, we need the token to be tradable, to be the ecosystem to start functioning, and now we need to scale and grow the business of art and watches and collectibles, but we don't necessarily need to be sort of the speculative coin of the month, because we think that ends up having a coin graph like a cardiogram. And we don't, none of us is interested in having the talk about Origyn be about the Origyn token. We'd like to talk about Origyn to be around the certification and authentication and value that we bring to the consumer.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of a talk that I had lately with CZ from Binance, who was saying that in the system, in the crypto ecosystem, there are too many of these projects that offer very high incentives on tokens, but they don't provide any value, and at the end everything collapses. So it's good that in your case you focus on actual providing value instead of hyping up like a specific token, but without having much behind it. So that sounds very solid. So I just wanted to.
For that, I mean, maybe just a thought on that. I mean, there was a coin, I think SOS coin, I think it was called, right? What they did was they said, okay, look at, we're going to incentivize everybody on OpenSea. We're going to target the top traders of NFTs, and we're going to just dump on them just to mirror their trades, right? No concept, no nothing behind it. And then within a month, they were listed on some of the top exchanges just because they could show, look at all the followers that we have that are the OpenSea's top NFT traders. Now that's exactly like one of those really hollow concepts, because it's inevitable that now they're listed and they've been able to fundraise, but they don't have, they didn't start with, what pain are we solving? What are we going to bring? What value are we adding? And so they're going to spend the money, I'm sure. But what's left over after the money's gone, and how much really, have they brought the Web3 environment forward is probably, debatable. Whereas we, our guys are industry professionals from Boston Consulting, from serial entrepreneurs in crypto. And, I myself was a partner at Ernst & Young for 20 years, before I kind of fell into Bitcoin and crypto. We've all, this isn't our first rodeo, and we really firm believers in the Web3 as being, the next internet thing that's happening. And we'd rather spend our time getting more people using Web3 wallets and encouraging adoption, then we'd like to pump a hype bubble. So I think it's a different starting position, and it's probably also a different level of experience in our team.
For sure. And now I think that we have some left time for one more question from the audience. Then I will let you say some final remarks. So, can you tell when your native token will be listed on CEX, or it's a secret? This is one of the questions from the audience.
I can say it's going to happen in June, and I can also tell you that the announcement will come out on Monday. The reason that we're being a bit cautious is that we know that there are parties out there that if we are too accurate about a drop date, they'll create a token that is sort of a fake token that's kind of a perpetual guarantee of the future value of our real token, and we've seen those used as instruments to destroy value. And so we don't want to get caught in that trap. So you'll see a token listing announcement very, very shortly on which dates, before our listing. But to give you a hint, that listing announcement is coming out Monday, and the listing will take place in June. So we're very close.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so thanks for solving that curiosity. And basically, if you have any final remarks to share with our audience, you are more than welcome.
Yeah, no, I think I would really like to thank everybody, for spending the time to get to know us and spending the time here. I see the Watchbox watches be listed on Impossible Things. And not initially, no. They run their own marketplace and they do it very, very well. Watchbox will continue to use its own marketplace. They do have another NFT concept, which we're supporting, which is extremely interesting, and allows you to have to give up the custody of the NFT to trade your watch, right? So you can have almost like a trading card for watches, which is really, really cool. We're extremely happy to be working with Watchbox on that. I would say that the best advice I could give you, if you want to have some OGY tokens, go to the Sonic DEX, swap some ICP for OGY. The other best piece of advice I can give you is if you want to see how our certificates make trading better, especially when it comes to ultra rare objects and collectibles, then go to impossiblethings.com, have a look at our marketplace, register for a pass. The pass holders will be able to get the first access to the NFT drops, and we have some truly legendary stuff coming up, an NFT concept, which will really show the power of the internet computer as well. We're really going to kind of up the standard for what's expected with an NFT with some of these stuff that's coming out. If you want to have, the first ability to buy those in the primary market, then the pass is the way to do that. You can already register for those passes on impossiblethings.com, and then you can bid on the primary market on the NFTs, and then sell those NFTs on the secondary market for the price of your choosing, if you're lucky enough to be one of the pass holders. So that's probably the best thing to do is and that's where you'll also see really sort of the value generation between now what's the first big Dfinity project with its own token in the Dfinity ecosystem starting to trade and starting to become public.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay. So I will just wrap up the AMA now. So thanks a lot for everyone who is watching, and thank you so much, Daniel, for coming on our show.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure, and great to talk to you guys. You're really sort of the cornerstone of what I've been following in crypto for years and years. So it's great to talk to you, and thanks a lot for excellent hosting.
Yeah, so I'm Giovanni, your host. See you at the next Cointelegraph AMA.